Thanks, everybody. First of all, I want to thank the organizers of this event for inviting Ken and I to speak here. It's not very often that we have an opportunity to speak to coaches. So even though there are a few of you here, we'd like to get our message across to you and move forward. First of all, I want you to think about this as we go through the presentation. The Canadian Amateur Rulebook for tackle football primarily covers player safety and the conduct of the game. Officials interpret the rules based on what they see and use their experience and best judgment to determine whether a foul has occurred and whether that foul should be applied. The ongoing cooperation and mutual respect between players, coaches, and officials is fundamental to the overall development of the game and the smooth conduct of individual contests. I want you all to remember that as we go through this presentation. Ken Green, he's been a member of the Toronto Football Officials Association for over 56 years. He's been on the field that long. He's been the referee in chief of the OUA for over 25 years, and refereed numerous championship games, including numerous Vanier Cups. He is also the former editor of the rulebook and was the chief rules interpreter for a number of years for amateur football in Canada. Myself, as said, I'm a member of Lakeshore, based here in Burlington, where I'm the director of recruiting and the certification programs. I'm also an OUA official, and I'm the president of the OUA Officials Association. This process, what we did a couple of years ago was a number of us got together and came up with a document that was to act as a guiding principle for officials across the province and hopefully across the nation. It was based on an NCAA document that I found on the internet. What we did, there was 7 of us who got together. We reviewed certain rules and situations, sometimes the more controversial ones. We had a discussion and agreed on the interpretation of those rules and situations. And we made a document and a presentation and an agreement on the philosophy to act as a guiding principle for all amateur football officials in Ontario in an attempt to ensure consistency across the province. Now, what we've done today for this presentation is we've flipped it a bit. We've taken some of our philosophies out of the officials document with a mind to try and figure out what you guys are thinking. And so this presentation is to give you guys a little insight into how we think, how we work, and how we call certain situations. As I said, those seven officials had over 230 years of officiating experience. They included Murray Taylor, who's the president of the Ontario Football Officials Association and is the referee-in-chief of the Ontario Varsity Football League. It also included Mr. Green, and it included 5 senior OUA officials. So over 230 years of officiating experience put this document together. Before I get into the actual rules and stuff, I just want to go over information that is in Rule 1 and Rule 2 of the amateur book. Football Canada, every official in Canada has to go through a certification process, just like hockey referees do, just like coaches do. There's 4 levels. Level 1 being a rookie clinic, level 4 being the highest level of certification. To do OUA football, you got to be a level 4 official. We do annual exams every year for insurance purposes and also to increase our knowledge. We attend clinics and conferences. We have to have knowledge of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 official mechanics. Positioning. There are some organizations that still have 3 officials on the field. Some do 4, some do 5, etc., etc. And we'll talk about those mechanics more when we get into the pass interference area of things. We're responsible for the administration of the game and rules. We are responsible to build cooperative relationships between referees, coaches, and players. But of course, our primary objective is protection of the players during that football game. Safety is paramount. And you're going to hear that a lot today. I want to talk about the responsibility of coaches as it relates to player safety. It's in section 1 of the rule book. It's up to you guys as coaches to ensure that all players are equipped properly. When we come out for our pre-game meeting with the head coach and we say, "Sir, are all your players equipped properly?" and you answer yes, they better be, because that is on you. You have ultimate liability to ensure that your players are equipped properly. You have to ensure that all injuries are given prompt and competent medical attention, and ensure the advice of a medical professional is carried out, be it a trainer, be it a doctor, or whoever you may have on your bench. If any official suspects that any player is suffering an injury, particularly a possible concussion, the official will notify the head coach or the medical personnel on site. Liability then rests with the head coach or the medical personnel to ensure that proper action is taken. Our liability is done when we explain to you that we feel a player may have a concussion. A few definitions that we're going to need to know as we go through this presentation. A rule. One of a set of explicit or understood regulations or principles governing conduct within a particular activity or sphere. That's the rule book. We always think it's black and white, right? It's not. Interpretation, an explanation or way of explaining. You as a coach may have a different interpretation of a rule than we as officials do. And a philosophy, a theory or attitude held by a person or organization that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. That's what this presentation was all about originally. We came up with a philosophy for all officials in Ontario to abide by. Topics. Those are the topics we're going to cover, and unfortunately we're going to have to cover them quite quickly. But blocking and holding, line of scrimmage, pass interference, passing situations, kicking, unnecessary roughness, and a couple of miscellaneous things thrown in. If any of you have any questions throughout the presentation, don't hesitate to throw your hand up or yell out and stop us, and we'll address those as we go along between Ken and I. Blocking and holding. These is where we get into some of our interpretations and some of our philosophies. Holding, blocking, and takedowns at the point of attack, those in the open field, and those affecting the result of the play, create special focus and will be called in these situations. Take that one step forward. If there's a potential offside or offensive holding foul, but the action occurs away from the play, away from the point of attack, has no effect, we're not going to call that. As we know, there's an old adage out there that holding can be called on every play in football. We know you guys coach your players to hold. Okay, that's a common fact. All right? But if it's got no effect on that immediate play, or could have no effect, we're not calling it. If you got a sweep going around the left end, and the D end on the right side's being held, we're not calling that. Rarely will you have a hold on a double team block unless there's a takedown or the defender breaks the double team and is pulled back. 9 times out of 10, if you've got a guy up against a double team block, he's not going to get out of that. Unless he breaks away, might have an impact on the play, and then he's taken down or brought back into that double team. Everybody understand that? Yes, sir.
The problem I have with that, though, is there's a number of teams that end up coaching their defensive linemen to tackle the double teams.
Yep.
And in certain instances, the offensive line has been assessed a penalty for that. I'm just wondering, how we should handle that from an offensive perspective in order to try to neutralize the tackling that's going on from the defensive linemen that are being doubled.
That's very tough for us to see.
Oh, I agree.
Particularly in the higher levels of ball, because that grab, that tackling is from the inside.
It is.
Okay? It's from the inside all the time. And we can't see it, we can't call it. Unless we see a hand or come out or encircling the body or whatever, it's very, very tough for us to see.
Well, yeah, and even what I see from watching film is that the defender will sort of slip his hand just on the shoulder harness in tight and then end up spinning backwards to cause an awkward fall and to cause a 2-on-1 to give the linebacker a free run on that.
Or sit down.
Exactly. Well, in essence, yes.
Yes, exactly. Real tough for us to call. Real tough for the line umpire to call, because if that play is out of a pass blocking situation, where it normally is, the referee's responsibility and his attention is drawn to his side of the line of scrimmage and the quarterback. So it's basically on the line umpire to have a look at that, and if he doesn't have the right angle on it from where he is, and he's starting 10 yards back from the ball, really tough for us to see. And
the other thing that comes in there is the man that's being held, he's got to be making some sort of effort to get away. Just yelling, he's holding me, he's holding me. That's not a penalty. He's got to be doing something to try and escape it.
Yeah, in my instances, the team that is best at it is the Queens Golden Gales. And
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, and they slink their hands in there real quick, and it's a quick jerk, and then they pull so all three of them go into a pile and create a big pile there.
Yep.
And it's harder in hell to see, and I guess I'm not asked, but in a couple instances we've had flags called on our offensive linemen for holding because the pile goes down so awkwardly.
Keep in mind, it's what we see.
Well, that was my, and I want to go along with what Irv was saying here. I think what happens, we talk about cause and effect. Sometimes the official sees that, in your explanation right here, unless there is a takedown, and they assume the takedown is because there was a hold from the offensive lineman, when in fact there hasn't been. The cause was not caused by that. I think where the frustration lies with a lot of us on offense is when that's called and there wasn't holding, but they see, well, it must have been because he's down. And we just want to make sure that those kind of calls are not made because they didn't see the cause of it, they just saw the effect that he's on the ground.
That is where the experience and the judgment of the individual official comes into play. A lot. Yes?
And I have to say that I've been involved where I've seen defensive holding. Spoke to the referee guy that says, I think I keep an eye on what they did. And when they saw it, they called it.
Yep.
So I have seen defensive holding calls. I think the officials are right. They got to see it, and these guys are good at what they do. And the players know how to, get away with it. So.
I think the majority of your coaches don't believe that defensive holding can occur. Their comment is, defensive holding?
Right.
Especially in the box. You know what I mean? Sometimes if they're holding the receivers. The other question I have is in regards to pass blocking with the hands being inside the framework of the body. Now, a lot of times what happens is defensive linemen try to work around an offensive lineman, so with my hands they end up extending and being across the body.
Yeah.
Is that what you guys are looking for in regards to holding?
When that happens, we're looking for a grab.
You can grab inside.
Yeah.
And hold on for dear life. But the minute he starts to move, unless you're sidestepping with him, the minute your hands go outside the frame, now you're in a hold position.
Now, how about if we get in a situation where a defender tries to throw a rip? You know what I mean? Because I see it sometimes where they'll sort of grab that hand and throw that rip and actually put themselves into a hold. You know what I mean? Do you still call that on the offensive lineman?
Again, that goes to the experience and judgment of the official who's looking at that.
Gotcha.
If there's an advantage gained by that, it's going to be called.
Yeah.
If there's no advantage gained. Like years ago, I can remember when I first started doing a line umpire in the OUA, the rule of thumb was you don't call holds on the inside because the coaches didn't want it called, and if a guy couldn't get out of a hold on the inside, he wasn't worth his salt to play.
Okay.
That's the way it was explained to me.
So based on that, like Irv wants, defensive line getting called for holding. Meanwhile, you just said it's okay to hold. What's the difference if I'm getting double teamed, I'm a D lineman, and I've got one guy with my hands and I'm bringing him close so I get my ass in front of the second guy, you know?
Yeah.
The scenario here is that what we would call a water ski technique, where that guy who's in the crevice of the double team is actually going to reach out and grab the outside pad of both guys, pull them in, and not let
them
them
do that.
put the film on the guys in Queens.
Bottom line is, that stuff on the inside, we can't see.
Exactly. So
We
you're not
can't
going to
see.
call the D lineman that's inside trying to play a double
If
team.
we got a takedown and we see that, and it has an effect on the play, it's at the point of attack, we're probably going to call it.
Well, you would call that if an old lineman grabbed the guy.
Exactly,
and brought him back.
exactly,
Yeah, so
exactly.
it goes both ways. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I know Irv wants all the calls, but.
Well, I'm just
Every
hoping.
coach wants all
No
the calls.
calls. Hey, I know these guys got the hardest job on the field. I got utmost respect for these guys.
I can't wait till we get to pass interference. For illegal blocks and blocks from the rear, the initial contact must be on the back. The severity of the actions of the offending player define the foul, whether it's a push from the rear or a block from the rear. Okay? A push from the rear is normally called when there's a shove in the back and the non-offending player is thrown off his route or thrown off whatever he's doing. That's a push. A block in the back is normally when somebody's hammered in the back and he goes down. Okay? That's the difference. Both of those situations, the initial contact has to be in the back.
But the defender cannot turn his back to you to incur the penalty, is that correct?
Correct. Very tough to see, very tough to
It
call.
happens.
That's why you gotta see the whole thing.
Right, that's right, that's what it should be.
Yeah.
We stay on this slide for a sec. Now, this doesn't apply in the box between the tackles. This does not apply.
Oh, no. Everything's free game in a box.
Okay, because again, we were talking outside zone,
Yeah.
and my kid was asking me, what happens if this guy runs in front of me? I said, jump on the back of his legs.
Got to start in the box and stay in the box.
Okay, where is the width of the box? Is it the offensive tackles or is it the defensive end?
Offensive tackle to tackle.
So it's not. So if that end lines up outside the box, okay, rushes upfield, my tackle sets and tries to cut him. That's cutting outside the box.
Sorry, what's happening here?
What illegal? Sorry, an illegal blocks, right? I might have confused issues here. So clipping between the tackles, okay. Is it okay to cut outside the tackles? Cut defensive linemen outside
No.
the block
Depends what
over waist?
level you're working.
Exactly, depends what level of ball you're doing. You're talking OUA football?
Yeah.
Yes, you can cut.
You can cut, tackle to tackle. Yeah, you
Okay.
can cut anywhere in OUA. Yeah,
So the receivers can cut downfield too?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Actually, not that.
That's, well, same here. Junior ball, OFC here in Ontario too.
Can I just ask just more clarification on blocking from behind downfield as a receiver or even on special teams? Are you looking at the position of the body, the helmet getting in front? So if I get in front of that guy and I get my hand up on his front numbers,
Helmet,
Helmet has nothing to do
but
with
then
it.
my backhand comes in as a follow-up because he turns at the end,
You're looking for the initial point of contact.
initial contact.
yeah, helmet's got, the positioning of the helmet has nothing to do with it.
So it's the initial contact, and then as he turns, the defender turns to get away, if I give him a shot in the back because he's turned, it's really that initial contact that's all we're explaining it.
Yep,
That's good.
You gotta remember, and last year too, that became a UR call. So it's an automatic first down.
yeah, it's this next slide, Ken.
Oh, sorry.
Blocks in the back, yeah, blocking in the back is now unnecessary roughness. It didn't used to be until last year. Blocks in the back away from the play shall be called unnecessary roughness. That's a redundant slide because all blocks in the back are UR now. Severe contact away from the play on a player who is not defending himself or is not participating in the play shall be called unnecessary roughness or rough play, depending on the severity. You cannot, and I know you guys, teach your guys, hit to the whistle, hit to the whistle, hit to the whistle. But if you got a player that's 20 or 30 yards away from the play and is doing nothing, and somebody drills him, you're going to get called for unnecessary roughness. Where you see this is special teams play. You get a lineman getting up off the pile while the ball's 30 yards away. He's standing there. As I like to say, he's not doing anything football-y, and somebody drills him. That's unnecessary roughness. Yes?
So a quarterback throwing an interception, and then he throws the ball. He's not challenging the defender to tackle him.
Yeah.
He's just staying there, and then someone comes in and levels him.
He's going to get called for UR.
Right.
You know, one problem I see it not so much in CIS, but I've seen it in high school. Like those peel back blocks, you know, on anything that's outside, like a screen, ball
Yeah.
screen. And I've seen that call. I'm thinking, you know, why would the guy call something like that? I mean, any kind of offensive line is taught to get back and make sure he stops and kind of flow. And it may appear like the guy's jogging, but he cranks them. You know, it's like a fine line, but I've seen that now called quite a few times watching some of these high school games.
Yeah, proximity to the ball is an issue there too.
I know, but it's pretty tough.
Yep.
For the old lineman coming back to figure out where the heck the ball carrier is.
I understand.
Well, it's safety, but
I know, I understand why the rule's there, but I'm an old school guy, and I don't think you're right. We used to play the whistle. And I believe that players that are out there that decide that 30 yards away, I'm just going to stop running and playing, you know, are putting themselves in an unsafe position. Now, we're telling players, you can't be aggressive because this guy's lazy. I understand the rule, but I'd like to see maybe that come back where people got to be alert on the field.
But if you got a player who's defenseless and isn't doing anything football-y, as I like to say.
When I used to play guard in the line, okay, and play on that side,
Yeah.
if there was a DB that was lazy, okay, I'd go out and trap him, and I'd smack him because, you know, you're in the game, pay attention. Not to hurt him. And players were aware that you could get anywhere in the field, so you kept your head on the swivel, and you kept moving. That's all. I understand the rule. I'd like to change, but
if I'm a wide receiver out here, and there's a sweep going that way, and I'm just standing watching, what am I doing?
why are you saying watching?
That's not the point.
That's not the
That's
point.
not the point. What am I doing? Nothing. Is it necessary to hit me? No. So you're penalized for unnecessary
I
roughness.
understand. I just feel that, you know, it tends to make players away from the play decide they're going to give up or just stop moving, and that's the reason.
Mike O'Shea used to be called 2 or 3 times a game for that when he was with the Argos.
I understand.
Peel back and wham.
Yeah, I understand.
The other issue I've had over the years, and it's only because of what you said, you coach your players to play to the whistle. There's certain plays that are over before the whistle goes. You know, the whistle doesn't end the play.
Okay.
In Canadian amateur football, when a player goes down, he's down. There's no need to take a free shot on him.
That's a fair point.
Okay? And we hear that all the time. Okay, we're going to talk about line of scrimmage. Offensive line players, tackle to tackle, must have their head and shoulder within a yard of the line of scrimmage at the snap. Tackle to tackle, they got to be together and in a straight line. None of this bowing of the line. The two ends on the line, meaning your two eligible ends, one on either end of the line, they may not necessarily have both shoulders within the yard. We're going to give them that area out on the end. Okay? Receivers who are in motion towards the opponent's goal line can be within a yard of the line of scrimmage as long as he's not offside. This will not affect the eligibility of any receiver. Okay, so you got a slot or a flanker, an outside guy who's going to the line at the snap of the ball. We're going to give him the line of scrimmage as long as he's not offside. And our little mantra is, don't be technical. If you're not sure, don't call it. You got to be positive. And we're going to work to keep linemen and receivers legal, and we'll call a foul only when it is obvious or where warnings are ignored. Where this comes into a lot is in minor amateur ball and high school ball, where you have different formations where you may need a guy up on the end of the line. Your wideout's got to be up on the end. We'll try and move them up as best we can so that you are in a legal formation.
One of the problems we get here is the wideout is saying to the sideman, "Am I okay?" What the hell does that mean? Does it mean you're up or you're not up? Am I on the line? Am I off the line? Not am I okay? Because we don't know what you're going to do or what you're supposed to be doing. Make sure he specifies.
Good.
If he's not getting a response from the sideman, then get to your captain to get to the referee and tell him. Because that's a responsibility for the sideman. That's one of his prime responsibilities.
Good habit to get into, and I know this is done at higher levels of ball, and I see it more and more high school. Tell your receivers that those wideouts, if they're supposed to be on the line, when they come out, put their arm up. So that the side guy knows, hey, that guy's supposed to be on the line. The side guy will move him up if he's not up. Just gives us a little heads up out there. And we're going to work with both offensive and defensive players early in the game, sure they're lining up properly as part of our proactive officiating. We'll yell at the defense to get back, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to get 1 warning a quarter. That's normally what happens. 1 warning a quarter, and if you don't get back, you're going to get dinged.
This can change, of course, as you get down to the lower.
Yes. Defensive linemen moving forward at the snap must be at least in the neutral zone to be called offside. Moving forward on their side of the neutral zone is not a foul. We see this more and more at all levels of football, where defensive linemen are sometimes lining 1.5 to 2 yards off the ball. They start moving forward, and of course the bench is screaming, he's offside, but he's not, because he's lined up more than a yard. And it's tough to see from the angles of the benches whether the guy's offside or not. But 9 times out of 10, the D lineman is back more than a yard, and he's moving forward at the snap, but he's not in the neutral zone.
This has been a problem with even at the OUA level. One of our biggest complaints from the coaches is that the sidemen are being too picky on this type of play. I mean, if he's just starting to go and nothing's happening, then you don't have a foul.
And defensive linemen who have entered the neutral zone and are retreating at the snap shall not be called offside. Because where's the advantage if he's backing out? There's no advantage gained. Yes?
How about a situation where the defensive lineman steps into the neutral zone and an offensive lineman reacts to that?
Wait for the next slide.
I segued you.
Good segue. When a defensive player moves into the neutral zone and then retreats prior to the snap, and the offense moves, defensive offside will be called only when it is the player or players immediately opposite of that defensive action.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Sure does, because again, I try to get my guys to hold their water because I've seen our quarterback get dinged a couple times by that lineman. So if he gets on your toes, then I want you to flinch and try to grab him so he doesn't get to our quarterback.
Any illegal movement that drives the defense offside shall be whistled dead. If an offensive lineman obviously breaks his stance or leaves early, the play will be whistled dead. Any situation where a defensive player breaks the plane of the line of scrimmage or makes contact with the opponent prior to the snap, that shall be whistled dead. Those are all kill plays.
There's no
But-
option. Sorry, there's no option on that either. If he moves prior to the ball being snapped and the play is blown dead, there's no option. It's just a 5 that repeat.
But any slight movement or rocking by an offensive player that does not draw the defense offside is not to be called.
So flinches are okay by the offensive lineman?
Pardon me?
Flinches are okay by the offensive
As
lineman?
long as the defense doesn't come. But if the defense reacts to that, you're going to be called for procedure.
How long does an offensive lineman have to be set before the ball is pulled?
1 full second. This was just a reminder for us. Formations during the executions of trick or unusual plays have the highest degree of scrutiny and should be completely legal. Therefore, when we come to speak with you at the start of a football game and you have a trick play in your repertoire, you need to tell us so that we know. Okay? That's very, very important. Pass interference. Something to remember about pass interference. An advantage or a disadvantage must occur. Okay? Judgment, experience, and the angle that the official have all play a major role in calling pass interference. In 3, 4, and 5 official mechanics, coverage of pass plays is strictly zoned. In 6 and 7 official mechanics, everyone but the umpire and the referee has coverage of a primary and a secondary receiver for this first 8 to 10 yards of that receiver's route. Then it goes into zone coverage. Head and eye movement in calling pass interference is extremely important. So when you've got a lesser amount of officials on the field, the official's probably going to be running when he makes that call. Keep in mind, it's a lot better to make a call on pass interference when you're stopped than when you are when you're running. Okay, so if you got a crew of 3 or 4 out there, keep that in the back of your mind. And slow motion replay is a wonderful thing, guys. It's so good for you guys to be looking at game tape after the game. But we're out there making bang, bang calls from what we see.
If you look at that second point, angles play a role. One thing we try to avoid at all costs is getting ourselves in dead line. We want to be more or less at about a 45. And most formations, we're hoping for what we call inside, outside coverage. Side man is the outside looking in. The man in the middle is the inside looking out. So you're seeing it from both sides, maybe at 90 degrees, 45 degrees, but definitely not right behind, because one of the players, either the receiver or the defensive man, will block you out.
Now, different crews seem to have different characters as far as how tightly or how much you let the guys play. Is there a conscious decision or a conversation that you guys have in tighter games in the fourth quarter, stuff like that, where you will allow the advantage-disadvantage rule just to broaden just a little bit, you know, be less apt to throw the flag in those situations?
No matter what level you're dealing with, whether it's somebody doing peewee ball or somebody doing OUA ball, there are 2 kinds of officials, good officials and bad officials. And unfortunately, there's not a hell of a lot we can do about that. No, we don't try to give, we don't intentionally give any.
You don't grip the flags. Yeah.
No.
Probably the biggest difference in officiating between hockey and football. Because we know in hockey they officiate different.
Our mantra, one of our mantras is every play the score is 0-0. But you do get situations in blowouts where things, sometimes, there's a little more leeway given.
Yeah, and you know,
As long as it doesn't become a safety issue.
well, you know, and I try to talk to my offensive line guys to keep them out of compromising positions to give you guys an opportunity to call a holding call. You know, and there might be a chance for a cumulative. You've been borderline holding for the last 3 or 4 plays out of the corner of my eye. All of a sudden I see another borderline hold. I'm dropping the flag for, you know, you talk about having to be positive that's a penalty, not sort of, you know, but is there a cumulative factor that sort of builds up too?
No. We're supposed to run for every play as if it's zip-zip. Defensive pass interference. These are examples of defensive pass interference. Early contact by a defender who is not playing the football is defensive pass interference, provided other requirements have been met and the ball is deemed to be catchable. Okay? Early contact, if he's not playing the ball, if that ball's catchable, it's PI. These are pretty basic for those of us that have been around football for a while. Playing through the back of a receiver in an attempt to make a play on the ball. Pass interference. Grabbing a receiver's arm in such a manner that restricts his opportunity to catch a pass. Pass interference.
One thing that tips you off on that arm grabbing is it's very unusual for a receiver to just go for a ball with one hand. So if you just see one hand go up, the key is, where's the other one?
The old arm bar, extending an arm across the body of a receiver, thus restricting his ability to catch the pass, regardless of the fact of whether or not the defender is playing the ball. He's got that arm across him. We see it, it's going to get called. Cutting off or riding a receiver out of the path to the ball by making contact with him without playing the football. Hooking a receiver in an attempt to get the ball in such a manner that causes the receiver's body to turn prior to the arrival of the football. These are not defensive pass interference. Incidental contact when both players are competing or neither player is looking for the ball. If there's any question whether that contact's incidental, we're going to rule that it's incidental and that there shall be no pass interference. Inadvertent tangling of the feet when both players are playing the ball or neither player is playing the ball. Contact that would normally be considered pass interference, but the pass is deemed uncatchable. We still might have another penalty that prevented that receiver from getting to that target area, such as a hold or something, but it's not pass interference. And laying a hand on a receiver that does not restrict the receiver in an attempt to make a play on the ball. You can have your hand on his hip or on his back, feeling out where he is, but if you're not pushing off or trying to create separation or pushing him off his route, that's not pass interference. Offensive PI. Initiating contact with a defender by shoving or pushing off, thus creating separation in an attempt to catch a pass. That's what we're looking for primarily in those situations, is the offensive player doing something to create separation. Driving through a defender who has established a position on the field. Where we see that tons of times is where we've got an underthrown football. And the defender's there waiting for it, and that receiver comes in right at him through the back. Incidental contact by a defender's hand, arm, or body when both players are competing for the ball or neither player is looking for the ball. Inadvertent tangling of the feet, such like not defensive pass interference. And the same thing, but the pass is uncatchable. It is not offensive pass interference on a pick play if the defensive player is blocking the offensive player when the pick occurs. We see this a lot. You know a pick play is coming, but the offensive player just isn't there yet, and the defender will make the initial contact. So therefore, it's not a pick. A few notes about pass interference. If there's any question whether the contact is incidental, we're going to rule that it's incidental. Defensive players have as much right to the path of the ball as eligible offensive players. Pass interference for both teams ends when the pass is touched beyond the line of scrimmage. So if we got a tip pass that has gone over the line of scrimmage and that ball's tipped, all bets are off. Both players have a right to the ball, but there must be an obvious intent to gain an advantage. Screening. Screening is defined as having the hands and arms above the shoulder level, interfering with the receiver's view. Screening, then turning to look for the ball, is a penalty. Turning to look for the ball and then putting your hands up as the ball gets there, that's a good defensive play. When two players are both looking at the ball and playing the ball, contact while attempting to catch it's not a foul. And on a pass that is underthrown, if a player tries to come back and is prevented from doing so by a player who established a position, that's not a foul.
Ooh, who's that guy?
I don't know, some fat chubby guy. If a pass is touched by any player prior to crossing the line of scrimmage, normal pass interference rules apply. So if that defensive player has got through the line of scrimmage and he tips the pass or deflects it, but it continues over the line of scrimmage, normal pass interference rules are in effect. For the passer to be ruled beyond the line of scrimmage when he releases the ball, his entire body and the ball must be beyond the line of scrimmage. And it's got to be obvious. And normally, in the higher levels of ball, this is normally called by a side guy. If a receiver who is airborne controls the ball and is either contacted or falls to the ground on his own inbounds, he must maintain control of the football through his fall to be awarded a catch. He has to survive contact with the defender and or the ground. If he goes out of bounds without contact, the pass is incomplete. Special focus shall be given on defensive action against the passer. The defender coming in on a passer has got to keep himself under control. And he's got to see the whole circumstances. And keep in mind, to have a penalty of roughing the passer, it doesn't have to be the quarterback. The penalty is roughing the passer. So if you pitch out to a running back who then throws the football, once that ball's gone, he gets the same protection as a quarterback normally would. The penalty is roughing the passer.
Now, when you say the defender must be under control, so let's say the back comes up, cuts a blitzing linebacker, a dogged linebacker. The linebacker dives over the cut, cascading into the quarterback.
Yep.
Is that still under control or is that out of control?
And the ball's gone?
Well, no, and the ball's just being released.
You have to see it.
You gotta see it.
Well, and that's,
And again, it depends where he's going to hit him and the severity of where he hits him.
Gotcha. So hits below the knees. Like a lot of times what happens is if in the course of my block the defender falls to the ground and keeps crabbing towards the quarterback and grabs a hold of his ankle. You know what I mean? To me, that's the most.
That's not a foul.
There is no rule in the Canadian Amateur Football rule book that prevents a defender from trying to tackle the quarterback at his knees.
Or below his knees.
Or below his knees. There is in pro ball,
Yeah.
but there's not here. However, if in the judgment and in the opinion of that stellar referee that's out there, he's going after his knees, he's going to call it.
Gotcha.
Once the pass has been released, there shall be no unnecessary contact on the passer. It's a foul, and the passer does not have to be the quarterback. If there is any uncertainty amongst the officials out there as to whether a pass is complete or incomplete, we're going to rule that it's incomplete. So if we can't figure it out on those bang-bang plays, we're going to rule that that pass is incomplete. Any primary contact above the quarterback's shoulders with anything is a foul. That should go for any player in the open field if somebody's headhunting, okay? But in those situations involving the quarterback, we got to be sure on the actions of the quarterback. What most referees do is when that football's gone, they're yelling, ball's gone, ball's gone. And if that quarterback's touched, there's a foul. To rule on intentional grounding, the quarterback must throw the ball away in an attempt to avoid a loss. He's got to be challenged, and he's got to throw the ball away to be avoiding a loss. Spiking of the ball to stop the clock is not a foul. And intentional grounding, the quarterback can be throwing the ball anywhere in amateur football. There's nothing like between the tackles or in the pocket or anything. If he rolls out and he's near the sideline and he's being challenged and he throws that ball away, that's intentional grounding. If the ball touches the ground simultaneously in the receiver's hands, the pass is incomplete. Special focus to all hits on defenseless receivers. If there's a guy that's defenseless and we got a DB coming in who just creams him for no reason at all, it's going to be called. To be ruled to catch, the receiver must be able to demonstrate and maintain firm control of the football. If there's any uncertainty, we're going to rule that it's incomplete. A few things here just on the kicking game.
Can I just ask a question just with receivers and DBs and releasing from the line? And what's allowed for DBs on receivers as they're releasing the line or receiver cutting by linebackers? What are you looking for then on receiver DB play?
When you can block them?
No, when you block them, when receiver's running a route and the defender's playing off a yard off the line?
That defender can do anything to protect his position. However, as soon as he makes a movement to go after that receiver, that's illegal.
And that's anywhere on the field.
Yeah.
I think you got to differentiate between defend and attack.
Right.
If you're defending yourself, you're not going after somebody. You're
Yeah.
more or less maintaining your position.
So if I'm a safety and a receiver's cutting across his face and he comes into my area, I'm protecting myself.
We've only got 3 minutes, and we just want to go through some slides here quick, guys. If the kicker runs out from his punt formation prior to punting the ball, he loses his roughing protection. However, you can still call UR on him. You can't take a free shot at him. Remember, there are remember the illegal interference on the punter prior to the line of scrimmage. If that punter kicks that football, you cannot block him before he crosses the line of scrimmage. And the difference in the penalty application is roughing the kicker and contacting the kicker are applied at the previous line of scrimmage. Interference on the kicker prior to the line of scrimmage is applied at point of possession. The ground can't cause a fumble, but it can cause an interception. Remember, surviving contact with the ground? Oh, but it can cause an incompletion, sorry. I'm trying to run through this to get it done. If contact occurs before a runner has a foot down out of bounds, it's a legal hit. So if you got a guy coming down the sidelines, he doesn't have a foot out of bounds or a foot on that white line yet, and somebody hits him, that's legal. However, if the whistle's blown and he's eased up, and there's more than incidental contact, we're going to call that unnecessary roughness. If a ball carrier is being held or is being driven back, forward progress has been stopped, we're going to give them the forward progress. We use a mantra when we call a foul. See the foul, find the ball, make the call. That is why you see late flags sometimes. In most instances, late flags are a result of the official processing what he has seen and coming to a conclusion as to whether the foul had or could have had effect on the play. That's why you see some flags come out late sometimes, because we're thinking about it and processing that information. Rough play must be deliberate and an intent to injure, and that's a disqualification. Spitting on an opponent is a disqualification. Racial slurs require disqualification. However, the referee's got to be clear of the entire conversation. Because so many of these kids know each other now because they play on all these Team Ontario, Team Canada rep teams, that you got to hear what they're saying to each other, because they could be joking at each other. I got about 2 minutes left. Taking of the knee. I know some coaches do not agree with this, but this is the way we call this near the end of a football game. The offense notifies the officials that they intend to take a knee. This is the process we go through. We notify the defense. We remind the quarterback to go directly to a knee. Once the referee sees that clean exchange between the center and the quarterback, that play is over. That is done for safety purposes. Nothing good is going to come out of that.
So if we go into a victory formation, but we want the quarterback to try to take 2 or 3 seconds off the clock,
that's not going to happen.
So if we go up there to line up in a formation where we want to try to milk the clock that is similar to a victory formation.
The referee is going to work with him.
Gotcha.
Okay? The referee is going to work with your quarterback on that.
Gotcha.
But as soon as that exchange is done, that whistle's going to go.
Okay, so we should trying to have that play where we're trying to milk 2 or 3 or 4 seconds off the clock.
No, you should. And the referee is going to work with the offense on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you got to notify. We're taking a knee.
So if we don't notify it, it's just a regular play then?
Exactly. Because we're not telling Team B not to come.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And we've got to be attentive to you are. If any part of the ball touches the goal line, whether it's going in or coming out, it's deemed to be in the end zone. Pretty straightforward. Any part of that ball touches that goal line, it's in the end zone. Player losing a helmet. If it's the ball carrier, the play is blown dead immediately. If any player loses his helmet, he must stop participating. If he doesn't, it's a penalty. We've got to see how that helmet comes off. Okay? If it's as a result of defender's action, we're going to call a foul. If it's just because of contact and we see the helmet pop off that offensive player, he's gone for 3 plays. Amateur ball, not the OUA. Okay. This is some things that you need to know about us and what we talk about every pregame. If you don't see the ball, you don't blow the whistle. See the foul, find the ball, make the call. If you think it's a foul, it's not. If they're on white, it ain't right. Get back, coach. If you're on that white line on the sidelines, we're going to ask you to get back. Wrapping up here. Safety of the athlete is paramount to all of us that are involved in this game of football. As you can see, some rules require proper interpretation and a philosophy regarding their application. Get to know your officials in your respective areas. Build relationships. Get to know guys that you can call to discuss penalty applications. We need help in recruiting officials. Some of us are getting old. Some of us are getting long in the tooth. We need younger officials out there. You guys can help us by asking members of your football teams to get involved in officiating. We have a number of former OUA guys that are starting to come out. Got a couple of former CFLers involved in Lakeshore. It's really working out. We need former football players out there. Football's an honest game. It's true to life. It's a game about sharing, just like we're doing today. It's a team game. So is life. We're all part of this, guys. Football's a great fraternity. You guys do a good job. We do the best job we can. We need to work together. Thanks for your attention today. Any questions? There's my email address, Ken Green's email address.